Here's another question I get. Why can't I go where I want to go in astral travel? Well, the simple answer is you are. But I think the question that people are meaning to ask this is why can't I go where the intellect wants me to go? Um, well, the issue here is primarily of course the intellect. Um, well, a lot of people, the intellect rules their existence. Um, and this is what I call the forceful intellect. It acknowledges no other part of the being. To the intellect, it is the only thing that exists. It holds up the universe, everything. The the entire structural integrity of the planet depends on the intellect functioning and holding it together. That's how the intellect sees itself. Um, it the thing it basically depends on you know things being solid and predictable. It does not like the unpredictable or the fluid. Um, and being this way, it's too rigid for fluid astral travel. It wants to take charge of the situation. It demands that the astral behave in a dense manner like the physical, which that's not how it works. When somebody actually manages to go into the astral with this forceful intellect and actually manages to do it, they are it's like they just get booted out again because the intellect just simply rejects it. It's like, oh, what happens is the first thing it starts doing in this situation is that it panics. It's used to being in control and having everything predictable, in control. The whole world depends on me being constantly awake and aware every single minute of the day. Um, uh, let's see. I mean, but in this new environment, it's fluid, dynamic, and it's not really congruent according to the intellect's understanding of the word. It feels like it feels like it's drowning because it has nothing solid to grasp onto. So behaving in a manner that is consistent with somebody drowning, if flails around looking for something to grab hold of, and the only thing solid is back in the physical, so the person wakes up wondering why they got sucked up back into their bodies when they tried to astral travel. Uh, Also, in rare instances, with this forceful intellect is temporarily stuck in the astral, if it happens to actually get stuck there for a little while and proceeds to stay there, it goes into this deeper panic mode where it's finally kind of okay, all right, I'm gonna die now. I'm gonna die. It's like, oh my god, I'm dying. It has it, it may enter emergency mode where like the sleep paralysis can occur, where it's afraid to do anything, so it just does nothing and stays there. Um, or this fear can kind of emanate, almost like a radiate like this, or shoot out this fear like a grenade or something like that, causing the astral to kind of warp and bend to those vibrations, because that's what it's more fluid. It'll present images what the person would associate death with, like demons, zombies, monsters, and stuff like that. That's where nightmares come from. Uh, I think the issue of this problem is to take a forceful intellect, which perceives itself valid element of a person. It's the only thing that exists. It holds together the universe. It is He-Man. The world could not go on without it. And try to tame it, help it work with other elements of your being, to have the intellect and the intuition work together, to help it become an integrated intellect, to allow it to become passive when it needs to be. And there are definite benefits to doing something like this. And to illustrate that, let me use the analogy of a trip to the Science Museum. We'll have Mr. Intellect, Mrs. Intuition here, and will illustrate how each one treats the trip. The intellect, Mr. Intellect, would micromanage the trip, so they say, okay, 8 o'clock we're going to the biology exhibit, 8:30 going to the planetarium, and 10:00 go to the technology exhibit, and it was just like, you're just being herded along without, just going to see what the intellect wants to see and no real fun in it, you can micromanage the thing to death. But, at the same time, to be fair, the intuition alone would just sit there and say, oh, that looks pretty. Oh my god, you see that dolphin do a backflip? Da, 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 da. And you have fun, but you don't really learn anything from it. You don't gain anything from it because it was just this kind of dreamy experience of just drifting off. Yeah. This isn't to put the intuition down at all. This intuition is a very important part of the being. Now let's picture, let's say, they somehow kind of merged into this one being that fully functioned both on an intellectual and intuitional level. The trip would be more like this. Oh, that looks interesting. A planetarium. Let's go see that. Isn't that interesting how the stars are configured this way? It almost reminds me of something else. Oh, an exhibit on the internet. Fascinating. The way this exhibit is set up almost reminds me of how social interaction works on a technological level. So you see, when they come together, it becomes like a fuller experience. You learn so much more when you, instead of resisting an intuitional guidance, you allow it without being overcome by it. I guess what I'd say is. I mean, basically, the idea is not to abandon the intellect entirely, but at the same time realize that the intuition knows where you need to go and what the intellect needs for nourishment. I know that in my life, when I let my intellect try to micromanage my experience, I usually end up unfulfilled. That's what I get, this empty feeling like, oh, that's a waste of time. But I mean, when intuition leads and the intellect capitalizes on the situations presented, I find that I'm exposed to far more interesting things than the intellect can provide alone. Now, I get a feeling this is because the intellect is only capable of exploring what it already knows. So there's no new stuff going on, or what it's been exposed to or is exposed to at the moment. And the intuition can lead you to new things, but it has no real retention of abstract data, so you can't really draw anything out of it without the intellect. So the idea is to just get both working in unison, and that's what creates the experience of reality that we experience here. So the issue may not be one of going where you want to go, because otherwise you would have been stuck at one point in the astral. You wouldn't have been going anywhere, because the way you propel yourself on the astral, the way you move around on the astral, you don't move around with your feet. You move around by desire, where you want to go. It's almost like you find that you can't open the door with your hands in the astral, because you're not supposed to open it with your hands. You're supposed to open it saying, I want that door open, and it opens for you. I mean, the whole issue is that the forceful intellect wants to micromanage the trip into a world it can't even accept as real or doesn't even have a foothold in. It needs to be taken back. It needs to be put into a passive state, not totally shut off, just put it kind of passive, and accept where the intuition takes it. I mean, the reason why I guess some people feel out of control in that state is because people are so used to the intellect taking the steering wheel and determining where you need to go, and micromanaging everything. When it's almost like you're more in control of the astral. Because your intuition naturally guides you. The intellect isn't in crisis mode constantly trying to force. It's like trying to pretend that its very existence holds the fabric of space time together. I think there was another quick issue people have about astral projection I'd like to cover. I mean, well, why can't I remember a lot in the astral? Well, the problem is there's another issue with the intellect, and that's why it's important to get the intuition and the intellect working together. Like I said, the intellect only knows what it's experienced, what it is experiencing at the moment. And in order for the intellect to register an experience, it has to have something that it relates to in a prior experience. Otherwise, it just throws it out the window. If it sees something it can't really, it's like it just doesn't even acknowledge it. It just doesn't even exist. I think there was a story about I guess a medicine man, like when some ship came over to the Americas, and the medicine man, I mean, nobody even saw the ship because they didn't even, they've never seen something like that before, and the medicine man only noticed that because he looked at the ripples in the water, and I think that's a pretty important clue as to how you integrate the intuition and the intellect. But that's pretty much it. All right, take care and brightest blessings. Thank you for listening.